Hey, We've got Charlie all back with us here from Inside Travel. We've just come to do just a fairly short video to talk about for the people who are going to go to Japan, or even if you're going to go out to your favorite restaurant in England. We're going to talk about Japanese food and the differences between the foods. Charlie, do you want to just talk us through those? And so when someone goes to Japan, or as I say, if they're here, they've got a very clear idea about what the different things are.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a huge topic, so I'm gonna
Yeah,
sort of sum
yeah,
up some of my personal favorites,
great. Yeah,
and
yeah,
hopefully do a little bit of myth busting, as well. So I think for a lot of people that haven't maybe been to Japan yet, or even a Japanese restaurant just yet, they might think, well, they might have heard of things like sushi and
yeah,
sashimi, might
yeah,
not necessarily know the difference.
yeah.
It's always a good rule of thumb that sushi is kind of raw fish on rice, and sashimi is just the raw fish alone. So that's really but Japan is more than sushi. And I just wanted to kind of give just a few flavors as well, of things to kind of look out for when you get the next opportunity. And hopefully that will be when you're in Tokyo yourself. But one of my favorites in the world that I'd love to start
Yeah,
with
yeah.
is ramen.
Okay.
On the top. Ramen is a delight. It is heaven in a bowl. For anybody that hasn't tried it yet, it's essentially noodles, kind of in a really delicious broth, and then with sort of usually sort of different ingredients that are kind of put in. So more often than not, you find some like slabs of chicken or pork, maybe with half a boiled egg kind of resting inside, and it's just absolutely
And to be clear,
delightful.
the ramen refers to the noodles, isn't it? That's the type of
That's
noodle.
right, yeah. So if you kind of go for ramen, then more often in Japan, then it will be served in the broth. So it is that combination of the two, really, that you find in Japan. I think if you kind of have ramen in the UK, then it can be that sort of dry packet stuff that kind of you can sort of put water in and sort of mix it together. But it is that kind of broth that kind of brings those noodles to life, I would say. And for etiquette as well, when you're eating ramen, which is a bit different from the UK, you are allowed to slurp.
Well, I'm
So
not sure in the UK you could do that, Charlie.
you
I
can't
know
do that
you.
so much in the
I know you
UK, but it's
travel, but
highly encouraged in Japan because it brings
okay.
that oxygen into the mouth and sort of kind of adds that extra sort of flavor into it. So it's 100% you'll hear other people slurping away on their ramen in Japan. But I would say kind of hand in hand with ramen is udon. Now, udon is another form of noodles that's more often than not served in broth, or if it is, it's served in a cold broth. But the noodles are generally sort of chewier and kind of thicker as well. So it's a kind of a different sort of balance of it. But it's another sort of noodle dish that's highly worth people's
Again,
time.
you'd have chicken or you'd have prawns or you'd have in a
More
similar
often than
sort of
not,
way.
it's generally the noodles on their own with udon. You might have like some kind of things on the side, but the noodles are generally tend to be eaten with maybe a little bit of soy sauce, but generally on their own. This is particularly good in the summer because it does get quite hot in Japan in the summer. So actually having some cold noodles for lunch is very, very refreshing and really yummy at the same time. Um, Thinking as well for things that people might not have heard of, but okonomiyaki, I think, is a really popular one. Now, okonomiyaki stands for or means as you like it, and essentially it's a dish that's made up of kind of a batter with also with noodles, but there's also cabbage involved as well, and then any ingredient that you can really imagine is then thrown into this mixture. It's all sort of churned up and then sort of laid out on this teppanyaki, this kind of grill, and then sort of kind of sliced into segments, usually covered in Worcester sauce, strangely, and then served like that. And that I'd say is fantastic for maybe that people that are picky eaters because the additional ingredients that you can put into okonomiyaki are endless. The last time I was in Japan, I had a pizza flavored okonomiyaki where I had
Okay.
those core ingredients, but it
Right.
also had pepperoni and cheese.
So let me be clear. This is something that's cooked in front of you.
There's different restaurants that are available, so it's either cooked in front of you, or you can cook it yourself. So you're kind of given, if you decide to cook it yourself, then you're kind of given the pre-made mixture with all of the ingredients that you want, and then you can lay it out yourself on this kind of grill in front of you as you're sitting down. Then you can grill it there and then
Would
cook
that
it.
be where you sat at like a bar, or is that like on your table? Because I know some things you can cook literally in front of you, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly at tables from the places that I've been. So each table will have its own booth, and then on the table will be the large kind of heated pan grill directly in front of you, so you can sort of cook it straight in front of you, and then take it off, and then set it aside and chomp away.
And just to be clear, the things we're talking about here, if someone went to Tokyo, they'd be able to get a selection of these. I understand that certain cities would specialize in different types of things, but in a Tokyo, you'd be able to get all varieties. So when you look to go out, if someone says, we've got this kind of option or this kind of option, the point of what we're talking about now is to understand what it's about, because there'd be that range of things there. Is that?
Of course, yeah. To be honest, you can find the majority of food, Japanese food, in any large Japanese city, but there will be places that favor certain types of food. Like Okonomiyaki, for example, is very well known in Osaka and Hiroshima, and they've got their own styles of doing it. Whereas kind of ramen, you can largely find in places like Fukuoka, which is incredible in Fukuoka. So every prefecture will have its specialty, but you can find it all over Japan.
Okay, the tempura, is that a...
Tempuras is my wife's favorite, actually. She particularly loves the shiso, which is this kind of leaf. That's then tempura is essentially kind of put into a batter and then deep fried. So you can have this kind of deep fried leaf, which is her absolute favorite. She will bend over backwards to have like as much as she can have.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a big fan of it as well. I do love the prawn tempura, but it's the vegetables as well. Things like sweet potato, that is just fantastic when it's kind of done in this style. And I'm saying sort of put it in batter and deep fry it. It is very different from going to your local chippy. It's a very different experience from that, although the
lighter, I think, isn't it?
The process is remarkably similar.
Yes. And then we've got what, tonkatsu?
Tonkatsu, and my favorite way of having tonkatsu, which is with a Japanese curry. So essentially, tonkatsu is kind of like a breaded pork cutlet. But if you serve it on rice with Japanese curry, which is kind of like a very sort of unique style of curry with its own sort of flavors and complexities, it's amazing. And although Japan doesn't do spice in a way that other maybe Asian destinations do, the exception is the Japanese curry and the tonkatsu, because you can really make it super spicy. There's a kind of a chain of restaurants in Japan which is kind of famous for its Japanese curry, and you can choose your level of spice. And when I used to live in Japan, I used to always aim for maybe like 5 or 6 on their scale of up to 10. But then I went back there last year and I hadn't had it in about 6 or 7 years. And I thought, I'm just as tough as I used to be.
Yes.
And I went for a 4, so I just dropped it down a couple. It took me an hour and a half to eat it just because it was so spicy.
I guess you sweated a little bit.
Anybody that wants that experience, the Japanese curry is where it's at, for sure. It's amazing.
There used to be an experience, I wouldn't say it was similar, in Manchester when I was at university, and they used to classify it slightly differently. That was a biryani, and they would do a mild, medium, hot, killer or suicide. And anybody who had either a killer or suicide would normally attract a crowd who would stand around clapping them, or at least gaping at them, while they virtually expired eating this unbelievably hot food that didn't really bear any resemblance to any normal food that you ate, but it was quite a party thing. So the final thing there is it festival foods? Is there something in...
Yeah, festival food. I'd say that just because festival food is such a huge part of going to a festival and having that experience. So what you'll find is lots of like stalls. So the traditional way to experience a festival in Japan is putting on your yukata. It looks a bit like a kimono, but it's a bit lighter. And then going out, maybe having a hand fan, because they are always taking place in summer, which is a bit hotter, and then seeing fireworks. But as you're sort of doing this, you're going past lots and lots of different street food options. So there you'll find kind of like meat on skewers, maybe sort of like different noodle dishes that you can take away. But my favorite is karaage, which is it's deep fried chicken essentially. But
say that again, so I didn't quite...
Called karaage.
Karaage. Ah, yes. I think some places do that here, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and it's the best fried chicken in the world. Apologies to everywhere else that can boast it, but it's my favorite, especially when it's on a stick and I'm wearing a yukata at the same time. The
festival food is there's some noodles and stuff which you'd expect to find in restaurants, but the rest of it is, I guess, slightly more snacky type stuff rather than...
It's more snacky stuff. I mean, you can definitely eat enough to basically equate a meal, but it's kind of more sort of hand food, snacky foods, things that you can kind of get and then kind of be on the go, or maybe take a seat somewhere.
And timing wise, that summertime, did you say, mainly across different cities, or?
Well, festivals, it's predominantly in the summer, regardless the destination. I mean, another one that's a big festival favorite is takoyaki, which some of your listeners might have heard of
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
but often referred to as octopus balls,
Okay.
which are, I wouldn't even say they're an acquired taste. I'd say that if you like squid, if you like to eat
Yeah.
squid, you'll
Yeah.
love a takoyaki, because it's
Quite
just
a
a piece
particular
of
texture.
full
Yeah.
octopus done in a pancake batter and then wrapped in this kind of ball and then covered in kind of like a savory sauce, and it's delicious. It's so good.
So just to sum up in terms of, does the dietary things, right? Is there something?
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing to think about when you're planning your own trip, and obviously, of course, to let Simon know straight away. So if there's certain things that you can't eat, then do let us know, and then we can make sure that there's still lots of nice things that will be thrown your way. But I mean, things like people that maybe are vegans or vegetarian, Japan is getting better with these dietary requirements. However, I'd say that celiac is probably the most challenging one, just because soy sauce likes to hide itself in
Yeah.
basically everything. It can still
Yes.
be done. 100% can still be done, but it
I
just
think
needs a
people
bit
need
more
to be
thought.
aware. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's fantastic. Really appreciate your time again, Charlie. Thanks so much indeed.
Thank you so much.